It would have gone hard in the paint, most definitely. That therapy would have put up 30 points and 10 rebounds.
Buckets, man.
15 assists, shoot 80% from the floor. Just legendary performance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new guest on the podcast tonight.
Chase Albee is no more.
Chase Albee is gone. We now have Chase Allheart.
Here comes the dude. Here comes this dude. Hey, it's me. I'm a different host now. I'm a different, cooler host.
Yeah, you're definitely cooler. You're no longer made of bees, you're made of hearts.
Which, yeah, that's a pretty good transition, I'd say.
That's a come up, for sure.
Yeah. All bees is sort of a tough existence, but if we're just sort of imagining...
Just ask Nick Cage, right?
If you're just imagining like all big hearts, that's like kind of a nice vision. Maybe not like realistically drawn terrifying hearts, although...
Anatomical hearts?
Anatomical hearts might be a little rough, but also, David... It's October while we're recording this, and we already missed a October episode because I was chilling on a beach for my honeymoon. Relax. So yes. It's time to be spooky. So maybe it is the anatomical heart.
Chase is now made of all anatomical hearts. That's a terrifying image.
Hey, it's Spooky Month again. Welcome back.
Spooky Month.
Hey.
Spooky Month.
It's Video Game Podtimism, the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chase Allheart.
My name is still David Benavides.
Yeah, Same guy.
Same guy. No
Still
change
great.
Over here.
Still great.
I'm now the longest running host on this podcast, so you'll get used to how we do things around here, but you're gonna have to take your lumps a little bit first, buddy. So it's just letting you know.
Just it's like drinking from a fire hose, man. You're just gonna absorb as much as you can.
So I have this 15 minutes to orient you to the whole entire process, and then if you ever ask me for anything ever again, I'm gonna resent you. So,
you're dead to me.
Hope
Sorry.
you do well. Yeah.
Jesus. So, hey, hello, welcome back. We had a comedy of errors. One of our episodes got nuked from orbit, and I also went on vacation. So it's been a little while. Hi, it's good to see you.
Big Hot Wheels saw our episode and was like, no.
Yeah, we'll do another one of those. Sorry, TK, you'll have to wait until after spooky season. But Hot Wheels Turbo Racing will arrive eventually. But we've got some spooky stuff to talk about before then.
We got it loaded in the chamber. It's ready to go whenever we want.
Yeah, we'll just redo that whole convo. Hey, wow, this is exciting. I really missed podcasting every week. It's a fun thrill. This is good.
It is a good time. It's a roller coaster.
It's a roller coaster. Have you been playing video games, David?
I have been playing video games.
Could you tell me about some of them?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over a couple of the other ones that got nuked in that episode.
Sure.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
I played Procession to Calvary.
Yes.
Which is like it's a point and click adventure set in medieval Renaissance era paintings, essentially.
It looks incredible
style.
Visually.
It looks incredible. It's all like Baroque era music playing in the background. It's a lot of fun. It's sassy. It's interesting. It's funny. I recommend it to people who even don't really like to play point and click adventures, because I don't usually play those, and I thought this one was quite good. Yeah. It encourages multiple playthroughs, but it's very short, so it's easy to get through.
I feel like we landed on it kind of reminding us of Monty Python last time we talked.
Yes, it is. It's definitely very Monty Python because it has those very intricate drawings with just like noodle arm articulations going on. Well, not noodle arms, but just like it's just the joints moving and nothing else, and it looks very goofy. So yeah, it's very much like a Monty Python short come to video game life. It's great. Give it a try. So I actually don't know if it's on Game Pass anymore. It might have left. I think I played it because it was on the leaving soon list. Sure. But it's still worth it even if you want to buy it. So good game.
Good game.
I've also been playing Soul Calibur 6.
Yep.
It has Geralt. Geralt's great.
It's Geralt in this one, guys.
There's Geralt cool? Now. The voice actor for Geralt is in it, and he's cool. I love Geralt.
Now is really good.
Geralt, he's so cool.
He's so cool.
Honestly, he plays really well in this game. I also made an abomination called Ronnie. Who is a large buff lizard man with the voice of a roguish wizard, and he's great.
I love Ronnie.
I need to send you a picture of Ronnie still.
I still haven't witnessed him. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I need to show you a picture of Ronnie. I also made Frieza, who's also a little lizard man.
Ooh, send me Frieza too. I want to see Frieza.
Ronnie and Frieza. Yeah, I just had to do it to him one time. You know what I mean?
What does that mean in this context? Make Frieza? Is doing it to him making Frieza?
Doing it to him was making Frieza.
Had to do it to him one time.
Gameplay is still classic Soul Calibur. It feels really great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I've been having a good time just kind of popping in and playing a couple matches. It's good. Mm-hmm. I have also finished Escape Academy. Escape Academy was great. I loved Escape Academy. If you have a significant other or anybody that you like to play games with who is a good couch co-op partner, play Escape Academy. It's good, fun puzzles.
This is the escape room game that I feel like this came up pretty recently, right?
Yeah, I talked about it I think on the last pod we actually released, but now I've just beaten it, and it's nice. It's like a first person video game escape room. So you just go around, you click on things, you solve puzzles, and you escape the room. It's great. It's really fun. And the last level has some good twists and turns in the story. The story was actually surprisingly interesting.
Right.
So yeah, very good.
Cool.
I've also been playing the new games now, the Hot Wheels game. It's on. It was on the PlayStation Plus free games, baby.
Yep.
I knew it was going to come there, and it did. It answered my prayers. So I've been playing that.
What is the name of this one again?
Hot Wheels Unleashed.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm honestly pleasantly surprised by the depth of the drifting and racing in this game.
Quality these wheels, man, they're hot.
These wheels aren't as hot. They are quality Hot Wheels.
Wow. Yeah.
They have put some care into these Hot Wheels.
Premium heat on these wheels.
Sounds like a stinger.
Premium heat.
But no, it's a lot of fun, good sense of speed, good sense of drifting, I guess, if that is a sense, just like how the drifts feel. They feel weighty and significant, and especially if you hit the wall, it really slows you down. So you're very much encouraged to drift perfectly around each turn, and that's hard to do, honestly, in this game. So it's a good little skill check. I also beat Gears 5.
Yes, yeah.
We talked about it a little bit beforehand in that I thought it was getting interesting in the story in that they were kind of re-examining the main character from the last game.
Yes.
After he had done something a little unsavory, such as, I think it was he ordered peaceful protesters to be fired upon.
A little more than unsavory, yeah.
Yes, that's putting it very lightly. Obviously supposed to remind the player of current events, I would say.
Right.
And so I thought it was really interesting and great how the game was handling that in the middle section of the game.
Yeah.
But then at the end, they suddenly give you this kind of a false dichotomy of a choice of either saving the guy who was the main character in the last one, Marcus Phoenix's son, who now shows back up with a bald head and a big old beard and a bunch of scars.
Yeah.
He's trying to change himself and be better and is recognizing what he did is wrong.
Who is also the dude who fired on the protesters.
Who's also the dude on fired on the protesters. So still on notice for sure, but trying to redeem himself. Okay. Or you can either choose to save him or your good friend who has been with you throughout the whole game, who has done nothing wrong at all.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty obvious choice, I think, what most people would choose in this situation. And it felt like a giant cop-out by the game to say, we're going to let the gamer decide what to do on this kind of hot topic, controversial subject so we don't get in the middle of it. And I would much rather have had them tell the story that they wanted to, as opposed to just shoehorning in this player choice moment when there has been really no other player choice moments like this that really affect the story in the whole game.
Yeah.
It felt like a giant cop-out, and they could have said something interesting and poignant and prescient and important, but they chose not to as a company, and it felt like a very, I don't know, maybe they had the story, maybe the people who are actually working on the game were like, this is what we want to do, but then I don't know if the suits came in to tell them no, we're not going to do this, if it was something from higher up, but it definitely felt inconsistent with the rest of the game at the very least.
Kind of like a financial decision rather than a narrative one.
And not even financial, but a political decision is what it felt like.
Yeah.
That could then affect their finances.
Sure.
So I guess I see what you're saying. So it felt like a cop-out, kind of soured me on the game. The shooting is fine. It's still Gears of War.
Yeah.
But I was more interested in this one because okay, female lead character, she's re-examining with everything that this problematic white guy has done, and I thought that was really interesting. And then they just kind of felt like they squandered it at the end.
I feel like we mentioned this the last time, but it's like I feel like they were set up so well to be able to say something really big.
Yeah.
With stuff like God of War or anything like that, or Final Fantasy VII, where it's like the game is directly engaging with the history of the series.
With itself. And I think that's such a cool thing that's been going on in games lately, is like with remakes and remasters, like going back and examining its own problematic behavior and like trying to reconcile that and move forward. But yeah, continue. I
was just going to say, and I think that's a really like strong way of continuing a series rather than just being like, oh, it's a new thing. We're wiping the slate clean. You know, it's a new series. We're not doing that old stuff anymore. It's a different game. They could have easily done that with God of War, but they like chose to engage with their content, which I think makes the game so much better. And so it's like the same thing with Gears of War, which is like a historically incredibly like testosterone laden video game, you know, like it's when I think of the stereotypical gamer, Gears is an image in that idea.
Yes, the chud boy.
Yeah, like it's just so hyper masculine, and so like the point of a lot of those earlier games was just like cool violence, you know. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, I don't know that that's like necessarily wrong. Like it's a video game, but I think you have it seems like they were maybe trying to do that, of engage with like, what does it actually mean to, you know, go along with this sort of ideology? If it's like, if I'm just a person who is totally comfortable with doing violence against whoever I think is the bad person, what actually happens there? And it sounds like that is kind of how that story played out with the protesters getting shot.
Yeah.
And so like, if you want to say something, there's quite a few avenues you could go through there.
Yeah.
I think like we mentioned last time, it ends up feeling like you were saying a little bit of a cop out to be like, okay, now you choose who's worthy of saving. Whereas if they made that part of the story and integrated it, it would be like, okay, like there's something being said here on either direction. If she saves either one of those people, I think there's a wild story to tell.
It feels very, you know, Trumpian in a way. It's like, a little, there's good people on both sides kind of thing.
Yeah, there's fine people on both sides. Yeah.
They fumbled at the goal line. Yeah. They could have said something really interesting, but they decided to go a different route.
Yeah.
And I'm looking this up online right now, and I'm trying to figure out which one's considered the canon ending, and I can't find anything.
Yeah, they may not have come down with that yet. May not have said like, this is definitely the ending that like counts.
Yeah, and they haven't said, and there's lots of debate online.
I'm sure there's a phenomenal comment section somewhere down there.
When men cried, boo, boo.
Awful.
Normalize men crying.
I know, just it's fine. It's a thing.
It's not an event. You can cry whenever you want, men. Please,
please, for God's sake,
let it out. Fuck.
Cry one time. It's so good for you.
Just even if it's just like a single manly tear, just do it. Like when you feel it, just do it. Anyways,
so yeah, it's very bizarre to make that choice, and I also totally get the hope of putting that on the player. Like there's a world where you could make that a really interesting decision, and I think we sort of touched on this last time as well, that like that's not what this game was doing. Like if it had been like a Mass Effect style game where there's a ton of decisions and this was just one of them, I think it could have been like really incredible if set up right. It sort of coming out of the blue and being this huge decision that like suddenly is thrust upon you in an otherwise pretty structured and like written narrative game. Like it seems very bizarre.
Yeah, and I was saying like, you know, if they gave you the chance to do like the option of doing some side missions with you and Del and JD, so he can like have a moment to try and redeem himself, and then give you the option if you finish all those to then like try to like save both of them potentially. That would have felt more good, I guess. Like if you were then deciding like, okay, I'm going to give this guy a second chance, as opposed to either I give this guy a second chance, or my friend who has been helping me this whole game, who has done literally nothing wrong and has been a mensch the whole time, should die. Like what option do you have? It's silly. It's like I said, it's a false equivalency that they're trying to make between these two people and their actions. Yeah. And it feels, it just doesn't feel right to have to choose between those two, or fair, because obviously you're going to choose. I think for me, it's like, it's got to be Del.
Yeah, the dude who is mostly like blameless and a good guy, or like the problematic dude.
Yeah, and the problematic dude who like is trying, but like is still a problematic dude.
Yeah, it's a lot cleaner of a decision to just like, I don't know, I like my friend, the normal one, you know, like.
Yeah, still doesn't feel like a good decision either way.
No, certainly not.
But,
and like, again, there
yeah.
is power in being able to say like there's not a right decision here. I feel like I think about some of the decisions in Mass Effect that are like not easy either direction.
Mm-hmm.
And those are pretty effective, especially when it's not necessarily like just, I'm getting renegade points for this. It's like actually choosing the fate of some people is interesting. It can be interesting.
I'm trying to get my renegade points. I'm gonna save JD.
Anyways,
I have 2 other games.
Talk to me about your video games. I want to hear them.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Project Wingman.
Project Wingman.
It's a plane game.
It's a plane game.
Sim, fighter plane
Fighter
sim.
jets, yeah. What is this? I've literally never heard of this game.
What this game is hard. This game is hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I know I complain sometimes on the pod about games that are overly tutorialized.
Sure.
But this game is grotesquely under tutorialized.
They just throw you in a fighter jet.
Pretty much. They throw you in a fighter jet and they're just like, here's how to shoot. Now go. I don't know how to do anything else in this fighter jet. I crashed so many times. I got shot down so many times by like these little boats on the ground. It's very immersive and fun though. So there's
looks
that.
Cool.
It's
like
cool.
Visually.
It's a cool game. And it's a very interesting backstory. It's like the world has ended and now things are built back up to where we can have fighter jets again.
Wow.
And now it just feels like modern times, but in the future.
Yeah.
With things like fucked up like California and the rest of like the tectonic plates have shifted and like the west coast at the San Andreas Fault is like coming off the mainland US and like things are fucked. It's weird.
That's cool.
Fun game. I'm gonna try to give it a little bit more of a shot. Maybe I'll watch like a video or something online how to play it. But yeah, it's intense. It's an intense game. Cockpit mode only, of course, because that's the way real Chad gamers play.
Oh my god! Wow. Okay.
I'm just kidding. Play it however you want. Yeah. I definitely switched to the 3rd-person mode. It starts you in the cockpit mode. I'm just like, I can't see anything because most of the screen is taken up by like your instruments. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I need to actually see my plane and orient myself.
Yeah.
But a fun game.
That's fascinating. I've heard nothing about this game.
I just saw it on Game Pass. I'm like, might as well download it. I haven't played like a flight sim in a while. So give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah. I feel like conceptually I like flight sim games, or like what's the main one? Ace Combat.
You were a big Ace Combat guy back in the day. I remember.
I think so, but I don't remember playing any of them. So like I don't know.
I remember you telling me like when Ace Combat, I think it's 3 or 4 came out. You're like, oh yeah, I've played all the Ace Combats.
Oh wow, that seems just like a bold-faced lie, huh?
Like I'm a big Ace Combat guy, and I'm like, oh okay, I've never heard you playing these games. It's like, oh no, I'm big into it.
That's so bizarre. What a weird thing to be like. Very staunchly into.
I remember it clearly because I was very surprised. I was like, when does Chase play like flight sim games?
Yeah.
I feel like I was very like on the pulse of your gaming life back then.
Yeah, you came to my house. You saw all the games I had. So weird. Yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of them. There's one called like Air Combat, then Ace Combat 2, Ace Combat 3 and 4. It must have been 4 or 5 that I was playing because those were the PlayStation 2 ones. Mm-hmm. And like conceptually, I like them. I think none of them have really done enough narratively for me to like really get into it. Mm-hmm. I think stuff like Crimson Skies like did that for me because there's like enough of a story there for me to be pretty into it. So I'm interested in Wingman if they've got this sort of like post-apocalypse thing going on.
They come hard in the paint with the story.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the story for sure.
Sure.
And they have a cool map too.
Ooh, man, nothing gets me going like a good map, David. If you've got a map of your video game, love that.
They just gave like a little teaser of it in one of like the briefings. Mm-hmm. Like, they better let me see that whole map because I don't want to poke around and like look at everything.
Yeah.
I need to see where Sacramento is. I need to see if it's okay.
Probably not.
Probably not. Probably fucked. But yeah, that game has been fun.
Cool.
And the last game, Chase.
Yeah.
I've been playing Halo 2.
What the
Master Chief Collection, baby.
What the fuck? Okay.
I started and beat it. I beat the whole game.
Yeah, it's such a short, like sit down and beatable kind of game.
It is. It's really good. It's really good still.
Yeah. What compelled you to go to Halo 2 of all games?
You know, I've always wanted to touch the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Sure.
Right. And I feel like Halo is this franchise that my mind, my conscious mind is like, oh yeah, Halo's fun. I played that a lot when I was a kid. Yeah. But like my subconscious mind and my body is like, you are part Halo, David. Don't deny yourself. You must play through Halo 2 again because that was an important game for you in your youth. And it was.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my Halo 2 launch story?
Tell me your Halo 2 launch story, David.
I had a lot of FOMO about not being allowed to go to the midnight launch of Halo 2
Sure
because
enough.
I was in middle school, I believe. So I went to sleep, a sad little boy. And when I woke up in the morning next to my bed, Halo 2. Awusto himself went to the midnight release
way.
and bought me the collector's edition of Halo 2 with the steel case.
Yeah, the metal case around it.
That opened
Heavy
up
as
from
fuck.
the middle. Heavy as fuck. What a guy. What a dad.
Wow, that's incredible.
Real dad move.
I also went with my dad to get it, I think at the midnight launch.
Mm-hmm.
I
It was
must
a
have-
school night, so my dad's like,
It was a
you
school
must
night.
stay and sleep, my son.
I will journey out to get you this mastered chief.
Pretty much. But he did. It was great. I'm surprised about how much of this campaign I remember. I don't remember playing through it that much, but I must have played through it multiple times because I remembered each hallway and turn and corner and enemy. It was surprising to me. And the game still plays really well, and the new graphics look really good.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm going to shout out like the Covenant doors when they open. Just look
Great.
real good when they open up. Because I remember as a kid, them always just looking kind of like butt.
Yeah.
When you get up close to them, you're like ready to go through, and you see the texture pack just like way closer than they ever thought you would get.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that just looks like pixels. But this is just beautiful and smooth, and it just like opens up so smoothly in like that nice 60 frames per second. Ooh, it's good.
It does. Yeah, they did a lot of good work on is it the Master Chief Collection? Is that what it's called?
Master Chief Collection, yeah.
Yeah, they did a lot
of games on there.
There's so much video game in that thing.
There's 6 games in there.
That's nuts. Is this also the one where you can flip between the two graphic styles, or was that just Halo 1?
I think that was just Halo 1. At least I did not see an option to do that.
That was really cool in Halo 1, but yeah, like you can definitely notice, like, yeah, they've done a lot of work to make this look good.
Like, why would I could see for nostalgia reasons, but like once you go the updated graphics, like I don't know if I could go back. But a surprisingly mature story for a game designed for children.
Teenage boys, yeah.
I was at that point thinking like 8th grade or 7th grade or something like that.
I remember a lot of it being over my head. Even Halo 2's basic story, like I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on there.
There's a lot of politicking going on in Halo 2's story, which I was very confused by as a child. But going back, I'm like, damn, this is actually kind of dense.
Yeah, they go kind of hard.
They go hard in the paint. Like you become an assassin for these people, and you go and kill some guy who's like seen them for who they are, and he's also an elite. And yeah, it's wild. It's wild. There's a lot going on.
Definitely the Arbiter stuff in that one is like much more interesting than like kind of anything Chief is doing.
Arbiter is like this very well thought out, interesting, deep character, and Chief is just like one-liners.
Just a tank that you get to play as.
Just a tank who goes through.
Finishing the fight, sir. Just think the Covenant may want their bomb back.
Permission to leave granted, Chief.
So ridiculous.
So ridiculous. Just like ultra hoorah fucking military shit, but it's still pretty fun.
I can't deny that Halo 2 isn't fun. It's a fun ass game.
Fun ass game. But yeah, it's the Chief's voice lines leave much to desire compared to the Arbiters.
Yeah, the Arbiter's got like a full-blown story. Like there's a lot of shit going on there.
Yeah.
Especially after in the first one, like there's so little told about the Covenant other than like they're bad ? You know, like there's very little other than like you land on the ring and like you got to deal with the Covenant. Like being able to get directly into like what they're thinking, the fact that there is thought at all. It's not just some terrifying, race that's trying to kill everybody. It's like, no, we have like shit going on in here too. It's great. I didn't appreciate it at the time at all. I think like I was just like, I want to play as Chief. But like, it's very cool that you can get in there. And honestly, I think a lot of my hang up at the time with playing as Arbiter was I don't want to use that fucking gun they give him. The like Arbiter plasma rifle or whatever. It does. No, the one that's like kind of more automatic.
Just the regular straight up plasma rifle.
I hate that thing.
You don't like the plasma rifle?
It don't do nothing. You got to like really lay into people to get them.
The plasma rifle does take a long time. The brute plasma rifle is even worse because it just like overheats immediately.
Yeah.
But the carbine.
Carbine's
the Covenant
chilling.
carbine?
Yeah, it's
no, dude, the carbine's not chill. The carbine fucking rips, bro.
Big Carbine apologist over here.
The Carbine is so good in this game. A lot of the Covenant weapons are a lot better in this game. But yeah, Halo 2 is still a good game.
A good video game. Yeah, it's
very good game.
It's perhaps not surprising, but like it's very cool that those games still are fun. They really nailed what was fun in Halo.
They really did, and the updated cutscenes are also really great too. A real treat. Look really good.
I've sort of been like grappling with this preconceived notion I had that I'm very interested in the lore of video games. I'll talk about this probably next time we record, but I've been playing through all of the Resident Evil games, and like initially I was like, oh cool, I get to know like the whole Resident Evil story, and it's just like nonsense. There's nothing going on in there. It's so ridiculous and so over the top. And that's, I think, by design, right? Like, they want it to be ridiculous, and that's fine. I enjoy the fact that they're telling this just weird story. And I used to be a dude who would read like Halo books and stuff like that to like get more of the backstory. And like, I think I have found it unsatisfying overall, and I'm like trying to come to terms with the fact that I might not care that much about the lore of something outside of the text of the video game, especially in like what we're going to talk about a little bit later, the main game we're doing. Like, I think over analyzing something can actually be a little bit more painful than just being like, yeah, they didn't really answer that question, and that's like part of it, you know, like that's part of the design. So it's, I did this. The reason I bring this up is I did this with Halo as well. When I was playing through them, it's like, it is a concise story. It is there, but I was hoping so much more. Like, if I just like really dig out every detail, I'm going to like know the wild story that's here. And it's like, it's kind of just Chief kicking ass for 4 games, you know, like 5 games, whatever it is now. Like it's a lot of it's
just Chief kicking ass. Yeah.
Like that's kind of
some dramatic points put in. Sure. That's fun. But it's just there for Chief to do some weird, wild shit.
Yeah. I think it's taken playing games that do have really concise stories for me to be like, oh yeah, that's not quite as good, is it?
This just got all over the place.
I really had to dig for the story there.
My question for you, Chase.
Yeah.
When did you care about video game stories? Because the only thing that I remember with you with cutscenes is just slamming straight through them. Same with any dialogue box that was on the screen.
Yeah. If there was,
it was always just bam, bam, bam. I'm like trying to read. I'm like, understand. You're like, no, dude, let's just fucking play the game. Let's fucking hit people. Let's do it.
There was a middle section. I think it was after playing Kingdom Hearts that I was like, I should probably pay attention.
You're like, hold on, there's more going on in these games than I've been giving them credit for.
When I got to Kingdom Hearts 2 and they're like, we're gonna start referencing some shit, and I'm like, no, dude, I got nothing. I know none of this. There was a middle section in there, and I do want to pay attention to the lore of a game that's in the game. Like, if it's in there, I'll be like, nice, let me read into this. But like, I don't need to go to Wiki to be like, who's the dad of Master Chief, unless that's like a thing.
Does he have a dad?
I think he was like a test tube baby.
There's gonna be some angry Halo fans on the Twitter if we get this wrong, Chase. Because weren't they like, wasn't it? I think what it was is that they were children who then the government pretended had died, but then like took them from their families. That's my call.
Who was Master Chief's dad is the current Google search I have. John was born in 2511 and lived with his mother and his father. There's no click into link under the word father, so I don't know that this was a particularly important.
He did have a dad.
He has a dad.
Master Dad.
Please, Master Dad was my father.
You can just call me Master.
You can just call me Matt. You can just call me. Are you playing any other video games, David?
No, I'm not. That's it.
Cool.
That's it.
Nice.
What have you been playing, my guy? On your honeymoon during your wedding week?
I've been on many flights and been hanging out in many hotel rooms recently. I of course got married. Let's thank you, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you.
You did the thing.
We did it. And so there's just been like kind of a lot of time to play games. And so I've been playing a lot of Switch games and a lot of Steam Deck. Downloaded a bunch of a lot of stuff for my Steam Deck to play. So I've been playing a bunch of it. I mentioned in the Destroyed recording that we had that I've been playing Resident Evil. I'll touch on that, I think, next week because I kind of want to dig a little bit more into it. I've played 1 through 4 and beat all of them, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm considering skipping 5 just because of all the like bummer stuff in there.
Is there bummer stuff in there?
It's like the zombies are like African tribesmen and it's like pretty bad, the like representation in there. It's like not good. Whereas like in 4, you're like in, I think like Spain, right?
Spain.
And like the dudes are just like Spaniards for all intents and purposes. Like they're just people. Whereas like the versions of people in Resident Evil 5 of like these like sub-Saharan African tribes are like awful. Like they're very like caricatures of what people would actually do, you know? So it feels pretty bad.
Come on, everybody.
Yeah, so I think I may skip that one altogether and just go to 6, which I've heard is awful. So I'm interested in seeing what's going on in there.
That one has Leon Kennedy as well, right?
It has a lot of people. I think it's got most
you
of
play like 3 different storylines, don't you?
Yeah, I think Chris is in it. I think Leon's in there. So yeah, I may dig into that one. And then, yeah, I played 7 pretty recently and 8 even more recently. So
cool.
We'll have rounded out nearly the whole thing. I also played Code Veronica last year. Like I've almost got the whole fucking catalog.
Are you like going for your PhD in Resident Evil at this point?
I may unfortunately have enough hours to say yes in a moment here.
I mean, how many people in the world have played every single Resident Evil game?
Probably a lot. There's probably a lot of people who have done that.
I don't know. It's probably less than you think.
If you've played all the Resident Evil games, tell us. Anyway, so I'll go into those games a little bit more next week. But for now, I'll just talk about the stuff that I've been kicking around since going on marriage and honeymoon tour.
Cool.
The first of which is this game called Potion Permit. Potion Permit is, I've heard these games recently described as Chore-core, and I love that, David.
Chore-core?
It's such
You're like doing laundry and shit?
No, it's like in the same sense that like Stardew Valley is Chore-core, where like
sure
I have all these things that I need to do.
You have tasks to do.
It is Ding Boy incarnate is what's going on. So Potion Permit, at least visually, looks kind of similar to like a Harvest Moon or a Stardew Valley. It's like a top-down, mostly looks like hand-drawn game. And you are this person who has arrived from the capital, who is a potion maker. You show up in this smaller town and you are replacing somebody who used to do the same job for this town that was also from the capital. It becomes pretty clear pretty quick that there was some kind of incident in the past with previous potion maker, and very few of the residents of this town trust you at all when you show up. Like something happened to the point where they're all a little bit like, I don't know about another potion maker, like especially for somebody from the capital, like they don't really know what they're doing here. This is sketchy.
Sure.
The mayor seems to have some kind of faith that like you'll do a good job, but like that's kind of it. And a lot of people's response to you right when you get there are like, oof, I don't trust you. Like kind of mean. And but anyway, the way that the game plays out is that you get this house that they let you live in. You can make potions, and the way that you do that is this like pretty fun mini game. It reminds me a lot of like how you equip chips in Mega Man Battle Network. So like I'm into that. It's like
this is ticking a lot of boxes for you, this game, Chase.
It sure is. It's essentially like this shape that shows up, and it's just like little grid-based shapes. So like, yeah, it's just a shape, and you have to fill in the shape with little bits and pieces that kind of look like Tetris pieces. And so like, okay, so I'm going to fill in the bottom left with like an L, and then I have like a longer single line up that I'm going to put over here. And once you're able to like completely fill in the shape, that's how you make a potion. You're finished at that point.
Sure. You
can sell these, but one of your main objectives when you're there is you open this clinic to help heal people, right? So like whenever they're sick, they'll come in there and show up, and you actually kind of like diagnose them through this like mini game where you like hover over the point that they're like, oh, my right arm hurts. Hover over that, and then there's like kind of a like rhythm mini game. It's like press, right, left, up, down,
sure.
all that sort of stuff. Or there's a handful of other versions of that, but I don't think I ever failed one. Like they're not very hard. And you do that, and then it says, okay, you need this potion to help this person. So you go back and make it, and you apply it to them, and they're somehow healed a little bit. It's like
sure.
It's a little fantastical, right? Like it's somebody has like something going on their arm that's like very serious, and you just like pour some potion on. It's like perfect, we're done. So there's that, and sort of the other big portion of this game and how you advance the narrative itself is you have like kind of friendship meters. with everybody in the town.
Another box ticked for Chase Albee.
It's good, and I will say they do both a better and a worse job than Stardew Valley does. I think that, so there's a meter that you can apply, and the ways that you get that up is just talking to people every day and giving them like this like dust that the people in the town give to each other. It's like a form of like appreciation. When you actually go talk to people on the daily, they usually say exactly the same stuff every single day. And it's like, okay, well, they probably didn't have time to program that many lines in, but it does start to feel a little bit stale there, which is, a little worse than Stardew Valley. But once you, hit a certain threshold and you like are able to up your meter, you unlock a very specific like kind of mission for that person. And so it ends up playing out like a story beat where, you are friends now with one of the armor smiths in town. And so you have to go like see what her deal is and like do some kind of, fetch quest, I guess. Because of course there is an area outside of town where you can go gather the resources needed to make potions. There's like enemies and shit. Again, it's a pretty easy game, I will say. So like at no point am I really struggling with like dying out there. It's just sort of like something you go do, which is, it's fine.
Dying is something you go do?
Dying is something is not, you don't go dying out there.
Okay.
It's very easy to, fight all the monsters and get what resources you need. And so it's never really like a huge challenge. And so I think the game is much more interested in showing you the stories that these people have, which ends up being really cool. I think that's a really interesting way to advance the game rather than just like, do you make enough money yet?
Sure.
And so I end up thinking that this game is like, there's parts of it that I think are like sort of bizarre, and I couldn't see someone saying they're shallow, but I think the game itself is trying to say something and is more interested in the process of healing in general, in both the physical sense of like, you're a potion maker, you're supposed to be there to help people, but also as you progress through the game, the town starts like coming to your aid in a certain sense of like, we trust you now. You've been here for long enough. You've built up these relationships. And there's this like mending process of like, they got so hurt by the last person that did this that it's kind of up to you to like mend that relationship with both the capital and yourself and these people.
There's no potion that fixes the relationship.
There sure
That's for damn sure.
There's not. And so you just have to like become friends with these people. And like some of it is really charming. I think a lot of some of the character interactions, I'm like, that's really cute and like fun to see what's going on in here. And so like you end up caring about these characters. I think that is a bit of a fantasy, like the power fantasy of being able to go to a rural town where outsiders are not welcome and convince them all that outsiders aren't so bad. Like that's in real life, it doesn't play out as easily as that, right? Like it's people are pretty locked into their ideas about like somebody coming in from the outside. And sometimes that can go very badly, right? So it is a fantasy for me, at least. Like the whole time I was like, this isn't how this would go. But it is kind of fun, like in the same way that playing a cool wizard is a fantasy. Like this is also fun to be like, wouldn't it be cool if you could
Severus
just go
Snape?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, wouldn't it be cool to be a sick wizard? But like, of course that's not possible in real life, in the same way that like this also probably is not possible. But it's still fun to kind of like pretend for a little while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I mosely beat this game. Like I'm at the end of it and like sort of have, there's more stuff to do as there is with any of these, but I do appreciate that it's not quite as like ad infinitum that Stardew Valley is. Like you can really just keep playing Stardew Valley. Whereas this one, I think there is a little bit more of like a narrative ending of like, okay, now this is mostly it. This is the end of the main story. Yeah, I just appreciate that it's taken the structure of games that are much more open-ended and applied it to this like narrative thing, has a little bit more to say about like healing and mending than I was expecting it to. So I think it's pretty good. I enjoyed my time with it.
Good. I
also played through all of Banjo-Kazooie, David.
Banjo-Kazooie?
I played through all of Banjo-Kazooie.
That's a deep cut.
It's on the like Nintendo's online service. You can go play N64 games, and this is one of them. I like started playing it on the plane because I've played the first few levels so many times that I was like, I could probably just rip through a lot of this game. So I did that, and I was like, I also don't know that I've ever actually beaten this game. So
you never beat it?
I don't think I did.
Really? You always talk so highly about this game. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I just don't think I ever, like when I was a kid, it does get pretty fucking difficult towards the end of the game.
Sure.
And like, I just don't think I did it when I was younger. Thank God for save states in the Nintendo Switch version. Cause like I guess spoilers, but not really. It's like one of the last bosses is you just go through this big like board game quiz that the main antagonist Gruntilda puts you through. And you have to like answer questions of like, what level is this song from? Which is like quite fun for me personally. But
so it's questions about the game itself.
Yes, very
That's
specifically. Fun. They're like, what's this character's name? And they'll show you like a JPEG of Clanker or something like that.
Who's that character?
Yeah, it's fun, right? Like that's a fun thing, but it's a lot easier to do with save states where you can just like roll back before you got the question wrong and do it again.
Yeah,
because it's like a big level. You really cannot get that many of them wrong. Not to mention the final boss is like punishingly difficult. Oh my God, dude, I had to use save states religiously. Like, there's no way I would have been able to get through that without like Dark Souls level of focus.
Oh my gosh.
She just has so many different forms and like she's like shooting. She's Frieza. She turns into a very smooth lizard person at the end of it. But no, she's just really hard and like has just like, she's able to like 360 no scope you from across the map sometimes, like shooting these fireballs at you. So it ends up becoming like pretty challenging, but was able to get her with the save states. Banjo-Kazooie. I like this game a lot. I think it's like kind of a game that a lot of people point to who are particularly nostalgic for this era. I think it represents a lot of like game design stuff that isn't present anymore and certainly not done well anymore. Even the Banjo-Kazooie games are not really doing this anymore. I guess Nuts and Bolts isn't a current game, but that was the last iteration.
That doesn't count. Doesn't count.
So yeah, I think a lot of people who grew up with the N64 very much point to this game as like, oh, it was a great one. And I think I agree with that for the most part. In hindsight, it is, doesn't control quite as well as Mario 64 did. I booted that up shortly after this just to see like, how does it feel comparatively? Mario 64 is still very, very good and like very competently made. It feels so buttery smooth to play that game. And like Banjo-Kazooie can be really tough and not for fun reasons. Like, the camera won't let me see where they are. And I died because of it,
Bummer.
So like that is a part of it. And I mostly just wanted to see like what this game was doing now, like playing it in 2022. And like I said, I think a lot of that comes down to like, did you enjoy this game at the time? If you did, then it's fun. And if not, like, I don't know. I don't exactly know how it would land on somebody who isn't familiar with this or has played games with better cameras. It's
the burden of knowledge at that point.
Yeah, I think the humor, at least at the time, was a big part of what drew me to it. And nowadays, it's a lot more hit or miss. Like some of it is still genuinely pretty funny. Like I think this is very much like if you like this spice, you might enjoy it. Of like all the fourth wall breaking is just there is no fourth wall in this game. It's always broken. They're constantly all the characters in the game are constantly referring to the fact that it's a video game and there's a person controlling them and like all sorts of shit. Like at no point is there ever this like illusion that you're not playing a video game. It's always part of the video game. And so like there's some funny humor that can happen there. When you're at the end of the game, once you like win the board game that Gruntilda's doing, like your sister of Banjo is one of the prizes that you can win. And so him and Kazooie go up. Right. It's ridiculous. And so they go up to like the prize pool and there's like that, a washing machine and like a stuffed plushie of Gruntilda. Banjo's like, I don't know, man. Like the plushie looks pretty cool. And his sister's like, come the fuck on, dude. Like get with it. And that's funny.
Himbo
I think
Banjo.
Yeah, I think that's pretty funny. The stuff that is less hit and more miss is like most of the time the jokes that they make about each other are incredibly like mean to one another. Everybody's very mean to each other in this game. And oftentimes it is rooted around somebody's physical appearance, specifically being fat, which sucks.
That's what I remember from Nuts and Bolts is the very beginning of the game. Just like, fatso, you're fat.
Yeah. And like, yeah, so Kazooie is constantly calling people big. Gruntilda herself is like a bigger character, and so like that's just constantly people are putting her on blast for that. And like she's a villain, like you can make fun of her for being a villainous character, but like it feels like really low hanging fruit and very mean spirited when they're making fun of each other's bodies in the way that like just kind of sucks nowadays. Like it's not nearly as funny as I thought it was when I was like 6 or 7 or whatever.
Yeah,
and that is both me aging and also what I think, has become a little bit more, not commonplace, but like comedy has shifted what is acceptable. And I think rightly so. I don't think that like this should be funny, right? Like this hurts to play through as, certain people because they're firing on everybody, right? Like it sucks to experience like, oh yeah, that person's like ugly, so they're bad, you know. That sucks. It sucks to experience that. So yeah, it can go either way in this game. I think it's still a very like happy-go-lucky game, and so you don't necessarily need to linger on the mean-spiritedness for too long, but like I can totally see if somebody was playing this for the first time and like bounced because of that. It can be really mean in the way that like late 90s, early 2000s stuff in general can be really mean.
Sure.
Plus, yeah, just not to mention like this game gets harder than I expected it to.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No, Click Clock Woods was a harrowing journey trying to get the jiggies in there.
The jiggies.
The jiggies. I guess I haven't really mentioned what this game is. If you've never played Banjo-Kazooie, this might be a very weird conversation.
Very, very confusing for some folks, potentially.
Yeah, it's like one of these older games where a lot of it is just like a collect-a-thon. Like you'll show up in a big map of a level, and it's like you got to go get a bunch of stuff, right? Like there are little notes on the ground that there are a finite amount of in each level that you're supposed to collect. There are these jiggies, which are puzzle pieces that allow you to progress through the game, and most everything else in the level is just in service of trying to get these jiggies.
Did Will Smith sue them?
He did not. I don't believe there was any jiggy getting with it in this. Game.
He didn't trademark jiggy.
I don't
he
think
just
so.
trademark getting jiggy with it.
Yeah, the act of being with the jiggy. Yeah.
Really missed out on an opportunity there.
Sorry, Will. I'll get him next time. So yeah, it's interesting. I enjoyed playing through it, and I think a lot of that was just like this personal challenge of like I would actually like to see this game through. Mm-hmm. And it's like I'd be lying to you if I said a lot of it wasn't just like a way to engage with nostalgia of like I liked playing this at the time, and it's kind of nice to play through it now, having, you know, I know what to do most of the time in this game, so it's nice to just go through it. But I think engaging with it a little more critically leads me to be like, there's probably better games to play if you're not nostalgic for this.
Sure.
And especially like if it just comes down to how you're able to play it, like it's hard, and a lot of the time that is not necessarily just like it's hard to do the jump. It's like the camera is really fucking with you, and it'll change on you in an instant and get stuck behind a building, and you won't be able to see yourself.
Yeah, it's no good. I feel like those early platformers a lot of them didn't age very well. Maybe Mario 64 being the outlier.
And which is shocking because that was like right out of the gate.
Miyamoto don't miss, man.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, an interesting trip down this game. I was thinking about trying to play Banjo-Tooie because I can't remember if that one's worse or better or whatever, but an interesting game regardless. The last game that I've been playing, David, is called Dome Keeper. This is a Steam Deck game. So Dome Keeper is a roguelike game where you alternate between these no deck building, thank God, or else we'd be here for another hour. Where you like alternate between mining below this dome that you like crash land on an alien planet with, and then between the mining you go back and fight off waves of these like aliens trying to attack the dome. And that's most of the game. The mining is very simple. You're just on this like 2D plane and you're controlling this little guy with like a jetpack or like a hover pack. You never run out of the ability to move. So you're mostly able to move wherever you want to underneath the dome. And the way that you mine is you just go like poke it, and each hit counts as like, you know, a hit against one of these little boxes down below the level. Nice. And sometimes there are like resources in them. Like I think there's like 3 types of resources that you can get, and you can use them to upgrade your dome, your guy, or like, you know, any number of things. The like fighting part of it is like kind of tower defense-y in that like you're in a stationary spot and you're trying to like fend off guys that are like coming towards you. So yeah, that's the first part of it. Cool. It is a pretty simple concept. Like that's not a particularly wildly deep game, but it ends up, I think, being really fun. It reminds me of a very condensed version of something like Moonlighter, like we've talked about before, of like this 2 kind of game flavors merged together. One of like this sort of tower defense, and the other one being this like mining game, that are both like simple in themselves, but I think they complement each other really well. You're also like always running on a timer, and so there's always kind of this stress of like when is the next wave going to show up, and am I going to be able to find enough resources to like upgrade my laser or my dome sword It's just like spinning around the outside of the dome.
That's cool.
It's cool as hell. It's really fun. And, eventually you find more like rare stuff down in the mine, these, perks that you're able to have of like, okay, now you have an automated laser that will kind of like stun people, or you have the ability to convert some of your resources from one to the other. And so like stuff like that makes it very replayable.
Yeah. Sounds like a fun mixture of genres.
Yes, it is. And I think like this is just like such an indie game where like I love being able to jump in for like a round or two and that being like my experience with it for a little while. And yeah, I just find it really fun, really interesting. I think it's a good example of a game that's just very concise. It knows what it wants to do and doesn't go super hard on adding other mechanics. It's just like, we're just kind of going to iterate on the stuff that we're letting you do of like, here's a new dome type, here's a new weapon type, in the same way that it feels significant in Monster Train when you unlock a new like clan or something like that, where it's like, okay, I kind of have to shift how I'm playing this game now. Despite the fact like it's very similar to what you were doing before, there's just kind of little tweaks here and there. I think it's really good. It's inexpensive. So like if you're interested, it's worth it.
Easy.
I will say also great Steam Deck game. There's this kind of emerging genre for me. Or it's not even a genre. It's just like I've noticed a type of game that goes well on the Steam Deck. And I think it is sort of these like kind of simpler indie games. Like I don't really need to play like Cyberpunk on my Steam Deck or anything like that.
That's the issue I always had with handhelds that are just like, we're trying to give you the home experience on the go. It's like, no, when I'm playing this on the go, I'm just always thinking how much better and easier this would play at home.
Yeah, for sure.
I need something that's tailored handheld. But continue.
Yeah, it's interesting that like, I don't know, something like the 3DS or something like that, They were making games for that specifically, and a lot of the games on there feel tailor-made for the 3DS, or even the PSP, right? Like Ridge Racer feels like for the PSP feels so specifically designed for that system. Whereas it's interesting that like nobody was necessarily thinking about the Steam Deck, for the most part, who have released games thus far or are releasing them now. But like some games are just like really good on that handheld.
Do you think Steam realized this? They're just like, we have so many indies on Steam. A deck would be the perfect place to play them on the go.
I'm sure. I think they like saw what was going on the Switch and they're like, God, we could make a lot of money if we just like got people off their desk, and like maybe there's more to it, but that is certainly my use case of like, I really don't want to sit at my desk and play Vampire Survivors. I would much prefer to play it on the deck or to play Dome Keeper or Graveyard Keeper or Potion Permit or any of these things. Dream Daddy. All of these games feel really good handheld and being able to like just immediately pause them or come back later rather than having to like, I have to boot up Windows 10 to get into this video game.
Get in here, yeah. Gotta update this bastard now.
Are my drivers all up to date? Like, it's a whole thing. So it's a really nice a bit like I love the ability to just fire these sort of games up on the Steam Deck. It's great.
Nice.
This will bring me to my Podtimistic thing of the week, David.
Yes.
Last time we recorded, you had 2. I'm also going to have 2 this time.
Maybe I'll have 3 this time then. How about that?
One of them is the thing I mentioned last time, which was the Metal Gear Solid 2 episode that we did. It came out. A lot of fun. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I love Metal Gear Solid 2. So like, it felt just like a big accomplishment to cover it in a way that I felt like was good. And a lot of people responded to it. Like a lot of people thought it or enjoyed the episode. I loved hearing that from folks. It was a widely listened to episode. Like I don't necessarily need a shitload of people to be listening to this podcast to enjoy making it, but that was also a true thing of the episode. So thanks for listening to that. And yeah, it was just a blast. I really liked making that one. And I love the response that we got to it. The other thing that I was going to bring up is listeners' responses to us fumbling the bag with our last episode and then taking a few weeks off. Most of the listeners who I heard from that were like responding to us being off for a week were like, cool, take some time. That's great. I love that. I love that the pitchforks weren't already out or that people were like, I'm fucking unsubscribing, bro. This shit sucks now. We don't have a few episodes until mid-October. Fuck you guys. So I very much appreciate that. It was very cool to feel supported in going off and taking a break and getting married and hanging out on a beach for a little while. So yeah, thanks. Thank you, listeners. That's what made me Podtimistic. David, is there something fueling your sense of Podtimism this week?
I'm going to have 4, Chase.
4! Doubling down.
I'm going to do the 2 that I did from the last episode because I think they're both still good.
Yes, yeah.
Colorblind modes.
Yes, very good option.
I used it on Gears, and then I used it on Halo 2. And everything just was clear. I could see people in the background better. Like, man, my eyes really are getting to me. And it didn't look different at all. It was just like clear. I'm like, wow. Yeah. They're really kind of zeroing in on colorblind mode. So thank you, everybody.
It's great.
I appreciate it. And I was also at Target the other day, a couple weeks ago now, back when Chase Albia still existed. And I saw some kids in the video game aisle. And normally I look down the video game aisle, there's no one there. No one playing the games, and every single console had a kid at it, and it just it made my old grumpy heart so happy to see the kids enjoying the games nowadays. So that was great. And then my 2 for this week, Chase. I'm being greedy. I'm being a very greedy podcaster right now. But I loved meeting people in real life who listen to the podcast.
Oh yeah,
that was a lot of fun at the wedding. Brian, Emily Elsa's brother. Good to meet him and to spend some time with him. And then also, Max. Yeah, cool to talk to him at the bar at the after party. So just cool to have people be like, oh yeah, I recognized your voice. I heard you. Like, excuse me? Is it really that distinctive? But I guess if you listen to it, sure. So that was really awesome to get some positive feedback from folks who I've never met before and just saying like, yeah, good job. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's very fun.
And then my last optimistic thing, Steve Vai and Nile Rodgers.
I'm sorry, what?
Steve Vai and Nile Rodgers.
What the fuck?
They are the people responsible for the sick-ass guitar riffs overlaying Halo 2 soundtrack.
Oh my god.
It is bodacious, these guitar riffs in this game. They are ridiculous, and they are so good and so over the top in the best way possible. I forgot that on the Arbiter level, I had to look this up to see if it was like actually the original, but the first Arbiter level where you get into a Banshee for the first time, it's just like a tapping guitar solo for like 4 or 5 minutes straight as you're just like blasting people in the Banshee going through this like crazy storm in this like space station on a planet. It was great.
So wild. They
really add something to the game, honestly. It wouldn't feel like Halo 2 if it didn't have those screeching guitars.
Even at the time, I was like, this is goofy, but it is pretty fun.
It's goofy, and I forgot about it, and it's good. It's bad and good in the best way possible.
Yeah, for sure.
It's campy. Almost.
Yeah. No, definitely. Very, very traditional campy too, because I think they were pretty earnest about like, we want to make Halo 2 fucking badass. Let's get some guitars in here.
Yeah, and can I just read you the list of people who are on the official bands on the official Halo 2 soundtrack?
Yeah, sure. I thought it was just Steve Vai doing his thing.
This is the soundtrack, not the original soundtrack. Okay. They released a CD.
Sure.
Okay. So besides just the actual like orchestral arrangement on this CD, they also had bands such as Incubus.
Oh my god.
Hoobastank.
What the fuck?
And Breaking Benjamin on this soundtrack. Man.
Breaking
it was
Benjamin.
The Buttrock video game soundtrack, Chase. We've been talking about this, and I think we manifested into me playing Halo 2 and finding this. But we found the pinnacle of Buttrock, I think, in video games.
Oh my god!
And it's Halo 2, actually, unfortunately enough.
Whoa! I mean, there were so many like honest to goodness Doritos advertisements with Halo, like Master Chief like standing on a Dorito or whatever, like so much of that shit.
Drinking a Mountain Dew.
Yes. So
I mean, there's not one, not two, not three, but 4 different Incubus tracks on this.
Jesus. Were those original tracks?
I think so. This one's called Never Surrender featuring Steve Vai, so I'm guessing.
That does sound like an original track, doesn't it?
They did Follow, parentheses, first movement of the Odyssey, second movement of the Odyssey, third movement of the Odyssey, and fourth movement of the Odyssey.
Of course. Love fourth movement of the Odyssey.
The Odyssey, folks. So yeah.
Oh, wow. That was a lot. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It needed to be said.
Hey, can we move on to our main thing, David?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, it's good games. Kind of.
I mean, yeah, it's a spooky good games.
Yeah, it's spooky good games time.
There's bats and goo and stuff.
Ghouls, goblins.
It has Jay-Z and current Kanye West. Very scary.
Very terrifying.
Very scary.
Jay-Z's getting like a vampire outfit, but Kanye is just there being awful.
Yeah, Jay-Z is dressed up as a monster that doesn't get enough love, and then Kanye is just himself.
Yeah, just doing his thing. So, it's spooky month, obviously. And God, there's really good scary video games. I feel like video games are really good fodder for spooks.
Video games are always the scariest medium of entertainment for me.
Yeah.
More than like a story or a movie or anything. A scary game scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. So I'm stoked we're back. For whatever reason, I feel like last October, is very distinct in my podcast memory of doing Clock Tower and Silent Hill 1 and Dino Crisis and all that shit. So I'm thrilled to be back, and we're kind of taking on a heavy hitter this time.
It's the big one.
Yeah. Normally good games, this segment is devoted to games that have not gotten the most love or were reviewed kind of poorly. However, we're doing Silent Hill 2 today.
That's a big one. It's
a pretty significant game, and I will say reviewed very well. So I don't think we're going to be having a lot of hot takes about Silent Hill 2 is actually really good. It is actually really good, but that's not necessarily an original thought.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
Let's get in it, baby.
David, may I hit you with some hot stats?
Please. You mean some spooky fact?
Okay. Yeah, hot stats are actually replaced by spooky facts this month. So we got a new thing.
Do you have a stinger for it?
Just say spooky facts, and I'll build a stinger around it.
Do I need to say it's spooky like?
That would be ideal. Yeah.
Spooky facts.
That's perfect.
Is that good? Can you work with that?
Yeah, I'll work with that one.
Direct me.
That was perfect. You got it in one.
All right, great.
So Silent Hill 2 came out September 24th of 2001. It was made by Team Silent, which was this a team within Konami. And they're mostly known for their their Silent Hill games. That's most of their pedigree there. They made, I think, 1 through 4 was the team. Most of the core team was there for those.
Yeah.
So, that's who made it. I also do have a review from gamesmania.de. I believe this is a German outlet.
DE is like Deutschland?
I think so. I think that's what it means.
All right.
So, I run Gamesmania's review through Google Translate a number of times through, of course, the Strait of Esperanto. And finally arriving back in English to really, really mangle their shit up real nice.
Good. Mangle it up. It's spooky month. Let's mangle it. We're talking about Silent Hill 2, so let's
mangle and jangle.
Mangle and jangle. Oh, man.
Gamesmania said, Silent Hill 2 offers a wonderful senior living experience and beautiful scenery. If you're bored when you start smoking, you won't miss out on the endless benefits of gaming later on. It's a shame, because in the best of the X-Files tradition, a funny story, like a strange incident of group of seemingly confused characters, becomes a well-thought-out puzzle that leads to a commanding, surprising surprise. 83 out of 100 from Gamesmania on this one.
Great.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. That's a really good one.
I love the pitch for senior living in the first sentence there.
Yeah. That was great. It's gonna be good for senior living. Send your grandpa to Silent Hill.
Yeah, she'll be fine. So let's see. David, could you explain to me what Silent Hill 2 is?
Yeah, Silent Hill 2 is a third-person survival horror game where you play as James.
Yep.
And he has gotten a spooky letter from his supposedly dead for 3 years wife, telling him to come to their special place back in Silent Hill. So, of course, like any other good widowed husband, he packs his bags and he heads straight to Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And things get foobar pretty quickly for him. True. So yeah, the basics of the game is you go around, you collect items, you solve puzzles, and you either hit or shoot monsters that are coming at you.
Right. Yeah. I feel like most of the game is structured around just getting someplace.
Yeah. It's kind of like a big maze. It's kind of like an escape room, actually.
A little bit, yeah.
So yeah, it's very puzzle and kind of adventure heavy. It's very much figure out where to go. You get there and then figure out the next place to go is kind of the game beat for the game.
After having played Resident Evil so much recently, it's shocking how little this game relies on action. Like there are
absolutely.
things to fight, but I feel like most of the time it's mostly there to just scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, it's easier just to kind of run past it if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not hard to do.
It's so scary that there's just these like monsters lurking in the dark. You know, like I feel like zombies in Resident Evil usually offer some kind of like gate almost of like, I got to get past these guys.
Yeah.
Whereas like these ones are just like, it's supposed to be scary that there's this like twitching creature in the mist.
Yep.
They do a similar trick that Silent Hill 1 did, where when you're running through the town, it's like pretty tough to see anything. There's just so much
very
fog.
hard to see.
And intentionally so. Not to mention they also do the thing where you get like a radio really early on in the game, and that's just kind of like if you are nearing a bad guy, it will sound like static is coming through the radio. And so they've kind of done a couple of interesting things there to bring over what Silent Hill 1 did well into this gen.
You don't have a radar or anything. It relies on you just like listening and paying attention and like engaging with the game auditorily and visually.
It's such a smart decision too, because like I love that horror games, like they take all of the normally good decisions that you can make in building a game and just throw them in the trash, and like that's exactly what makes a good horror game, you know? Like so much of this game is like it's forcing you to listen to the sounds that are going on, and they'll oftentimes just play fucking spooky sounds for no reason, and like you're so unclear as the player, like, was that a bad guy? Are things getting worse? The music is getting scarier.
Is this a bad guy, or is this just like a laundry room that I'm listening to right now?
Exactly. Yeah, the distinction between like what is functional sound and what is non-functional sound is blurred to really great effect.
Purposely unclear.
Yeah, and it works so well. Like I'm just always kind of like, oh fuck, was there a bad guy behind me? Is there something coming to get me?
Always on edge. Yeah. Always a little confused and always a little disoriented in this game.
Yeah, they give you very few moments to relax. You're always kind of worried that something is lurking.
Oftentimes it is.
Oftentimes it is. So, well, there's a lot of shit to talk about with this game, and I've mostly fallen head over heels for it in the past couple of days. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'll play through this for good games. But then ended up just beating the game because I was like, I can't stop. I think it's so much fun and interesting. The story is incredible and like I think does some genuinely interesting stuff. Yeah. But like just on the whole, what did you think experiencing this game? What were your kind of overall thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. The atmosphere is fantastic.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm fighting against every single bit of this game. Like it feels like I am like it feels like I'm drowning constantly in this game. And I think that's by design. Like everything's confusing. I can't see well. There's things lurking around the corner. I'm always trying to find more resources. I'm confused as to where to go. I don't know how to fight enemies at first. I just kind of have to figure it out. It's just it's very much like it really makes you feel like you are in this very disorienting, strange place because it doesn't give you a lot of information on how to interact with the world or do things. It just lets you figure it out. So it very much feels like you're on an adventure to find your way through and find where you're supposed to go and figure out what you're supposed to do when you get there. And I think that's very, even by today's standards, a pretty fresh take on just game design. I don't know of many other games. Maybe like, I guess Elden Ring is kind of similar in that, but even Elden Ring gives you more hints and like tutorialization of like what to do. Yeah. And, you know, I think this game compared to like I was talking Project Wingman earlier, like at least this game, the core mechanics are somewhat simplistic. So you can kind of figure it out in a pinch. Whereas something that's too complicated, like a Project Wingman, you're just confused and like it's just too much to take in all at once. Whereas this is like this slow buildup of learning how to do things and what to do and how to interact with the world and do things the way it wants you to. So yeah, really, really great.
I'm not surprised that this is held up as like one of the better horror games out there.
Yeah, it doesn't feel old even with the tank controls.
Yeah, no, and like I think Silent Hill 1 definitely made for me better use of like the camera angles and stuff. I think we talked about that last year of like it's really often really fucking with the player as far as where it's, or like how it was showing Harry Mason to you. Like, you know, the camera's like zooming in and twisting and turning and doing all this shit. And like, this one doesn't do that quite as much. And I suspect that's just like they wanted to make it a little bit more consistent, but like, good God, is it still frightening in like a lot of other spots.
Yeah.
It's so I played on like just about the easiest difficulty you can get, or the easiest difficulty you can get, which like I really enjoyed. I really liked that it wasn't very hard to play, because like I think you're right that the experience of like your first encounter with one of the bad guys, which are like, I guess we can talk about the design of them, these like terrifying, like shambling horrors that like,
yeah, like naked mole rat zombie people.
There's like a few of them that look like mannequins that have like
all legs.
Yeah, it's like a pair of bottom legs and a pair of top legs just like stacked end to end
with some fleshy bit in the middle.
Yeah, they had talked about, I was reading the wiki, and they had talked about wanting to make the creatures look like spoiled flesh, and I think they got it.
Did a great job. Nail on the head.
And not to mention that there's also these like, I guess more human looking creatures, but like they are all dressed up as like nurses,
but like sexy nurses.
Yes, specifically. And like that, you know, sometimes games just do that for being the fucking video game, but there is like a very intentional purpose behind that. And I really like that it's not just like hand waved away at some point. It's like it's part of the core narrative, like how the enemies are designed.
It's not just like, well, boys are playing this game, so you know,
horny. Yeah,
we had to do it to them.
Yeah. No, it's actually, it's pretty interesting. I agree with you that like, I think a lot of what it's doing is really novel. So much of the horror is not due to jump scares or like, you know, frightening you all at once. It's just this overall terrifying, like creeping feeling that you get for the entire game. And it really never
just doesn't
stops.
Doesn't let up, right? It's just this constant state of like a little bit of anxiety that doesn't stop, except for when you get states of a lot of anxiety.
Yes. And like I was saying about the difficulty, I appreciate when I don't have to worry about like, am I going to die here? Because I can just focus on like the actual horror parts of it, of like, is that a monster? Am I hearing something in the background? What am I seeing right now? The game does a lot of stuff with like fucking with your sense of direction and like your expectation of like where you should be physically in a space. Yeah. There's a part later on in the game where you go down like deep underground, like many layers of like elevators and staircases and like jumping into like holes that are just in the ground. And then you just come out of a door on the surface at some point. It's like, that shouldn't work. Like, that's not how that should work at all.
This doesn't make sense. Yeah.
And like, it's on purpose. It's trying to confuse you about where you are. And like, I think in a way that's like pretty tasteful. It's not done in a way where you're constantly getting lost. I think it is easy to get lost in here, but that's like done in a way where like, if you are looking at the map, you can kind of like figure it out eventually.
There's a lot of dead ends. It really kind of funnels you into the direction you're supposed to go, which is nice because it doesn't punish you for like exploring, because there's usually like an item or something at a dead end area, or like a little bit of lore. But and it makes it clear on the map afterwards, like, okay, you don't have to worry about this area anymore. You just have to get here and find out how to get to there from where you are. Yeah. It's like a maze kind of.
Yeah. It's done pretty well. And like I used a guide for some of it, just because I did want to like see the whole game, but they are pretty smart about how they force you to like be lost for a little while, but like you are able to kind of like piece it together what's going on. And I think a lot of that aids the narrative. Like the character you're playing as James, like a lot of this game, kind of spoilers for this, but a lot of it is about him being lost and like hitting dead ends mentally, right? Like,
sure,
he's trying to explore through all the shit that he's done, and like it's not easy to do. So like it's a physical representation of what he's going through. So before we get too into the story, I do want to issue like a few content warnings here. Like this game gets pretty heavy. Yeah. Specifically around like suicidal ideation, sexual assault, I guess like violence, just generalized violence.
I think you hit the two main ones that I can think of.
Yeah, those I think those are like the two like kind of bigger pieces.
Domestic violence, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely that too. So like if any of that sounds like unpalatable, if you're just not in a headspace to deal with it, you can skip to the end, or like this can definitely be the end of the episode for you. Don't subject yourself to something that you don't want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. So the story of this game is really interesting. And like, I was thinking like maybe we could do like a full episode on this, but at the same time, like the story beats are pretty concise and there's not very many of them. It's just sort of like the interpretation is what's fun about the digging around and like what it all means, I think is the more fun part of it.
Yeah.
Essentially, to put a fine point on it, essentially is what happens is that you, as this character James, like you said, show up at this town. Apparently you've got a letter from your dead wife who's like, we're waiting in our special place. You show up, there's a woman who looks a lot like her. You're
just
dead.
a little sexier and sassier in a strange way.
In a way that like James calls out specifically. He's like, you look just like her. She introduces herself as Maria. Your dead wife's name is Mary, and she has been called to this town for whatever reason. You also encounter a handful of other characters, one of them named Eddie, who is this guy who...
You meet him vomiting in the toilet.
Yeah, he's having a rough go of it. He seems sick and is talking about like, no, I didn't do it. I didn't kill anybody. Like, that person was already dead when I got here, yada, yada, yada. And like, at this point, you've run through a pretty significant series of horrors and you're like, okay, whatever. Like, there's monsters here.
Yeah.
Fine.
On the list of things I care about, this is pretty far down the list.
Yeah. And so like he shows up at a certain point. There is a younger girl named Laura who seems like kind of unaffected by all the wacky shit going on here. And Angela, who is supposed to be a teenager, I was like, she does not look like a teenager.
She look like she's in her 20s.
Who you find in like a cemetery and she's like searching for her mom. And like all of these characters, I will say, are voiced incredibly surreally. Like they're all kind of off kilter in a way that like could feel like just bad PS2 voice lines, but like I think it's intentional because jumping ahead a little bit, they're all experiencing some form of like physical and mental delusions that have been made manifest by Silent Hill, the town. I'll save a little bit more for that, but like essentially like they're all experiencing a certain version of this place that is terrifying in its own way.
Yes. Yeah.
So the story eventually plays out that like you as James, you're like trying to find where Mary is, go through all this like pretty brutal shit of like having to go through different parts of Silent Hill that are all very scary and spooky. You run into this monster named Pyramid Head, which is like a very, very classic design at this point.
Yeah. Most people would know Pyramid Head, but he looks like a butcher with a big like metal pyramid on his head. And you first meet him, he's behind some bars and he's just standing there just staring at you.
Oh my God, yeah.
It is so spooky.
So
and he's just
menacing.
like has this menacing red aura around him.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything. It doesn't move. No. He just stands there and just like clearly staring at you.
Yeah.
A bad time.
Yeah, it's terrifying. His presence is so scary.
Just standing there ominously. Menacingly.
Say, right? Yeah. So it's really interesting, like his presence in this game. It ends up being really significant, but initially you're just like, oh, fuck this guy. That is so scary.
Yeah.
Not to mention, he is also kind of like hunting the other creatures in this area that you're in, like the legs creatures, and not to mention the mannequin creatures. And he's also introduced in a way where like the movements he's doing to attack them are like feel kind of like sexual in nature.
I don't think they feel sexual in nature.
They just are
sexual in nature. Yeah.
And it's like terrifying just for like in a primal, scary way. You're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on over there. It's just so frightening. It's bad. Yeah.
It's all bad. Like it's a pretty famous scene, I would think.
Yeah.
But it's disturbing.
It's very disturbing. So you move through a couple of levels where like, you're being kind of chased down by Pyramid Head. Maria eventually meets up with you and is like, hey, like I saw this little girl and we should go like find her. You sort of chase after her. At a certain point though, when you're running away from Pyramid Head with Maria, she gets caught on one side of an elevator and is killed by Pyramid Head.
Yeah.
And so like, James is pretty torn up about this. He's still very unclear about who she is or her role in any of this and is like, freaked out by it. James eventually is like, okay, so I need to go find this like hotel that me and Mary stayed at, and has to go through this like historical society where this is the section I was talking about where like you go just like deep underground over and over and over again. It's like so frightening, the visuals that they're presenting you with of like underground. It just keeps getting like kind of darker, and the same vision of this like kind of in-between world that you had in Silent Hill 1 of like these metallic, almost industrial rusted areas are present, and it's just fucking terrifying, like the visual design of these places.
Yeah.
Not to mention you go down there and at like the bottom of one of these areas, there are 3 graves dug.
Mm-hmm.
One for Eddie, one for Angela, and one for you as James.
Oh, man.
It's so frightening. Like there's just a cemetery down there. It's so scary. And the way that you progress that part of the game is you jump into your own grave, which somehow leads you to this like meat locker where Eddie's there and is like having a sort of like mental break.
Yeah.
Admits to you like, yes, I did kill some people and you know, I was kind of like torturing them as well. And you have to like fight Eddie in this moment. It's really disturbing. And not to mention like Eddie at a certain points in here mentions to you like, you think you're so high and mighty, but like this place called to you too. Like this Silent Hill has reached out to you as well. And essentially suggesting like this is a place for people who are going through it, you know?
Yeah. This is a place for bad people.
Yeah. And like up to this point, there isn't a lot of discussion about James's history. Like you get a little bit here and there, but it's like you have mostly been working under the assumption that like he's just looking for Mary.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the next like major beat is that you do end up going to this hotel. Sorry, one more thing to back up before Eddie. You do run into Maria again, who's somehow alive.
Right.
And like behind bars, like you run into her and there's like a jail cell between the two of you.
She's just hanging out.
Yeah. And like she seems to be like, oh yeah, we got separated. What happened to you? And also she starts talking about shit that like only Mary would know, you know, like very intimate stuff about their lives that like, he's like, how the fuck, like, do you know any of this? And is very like provocative, like sexually to him. Like, you know, like I want you to come and have me, you know, like that sort of stuff. And by the time he gets here though, to her, like behind the bars, she's been killed again by Pyramid Head. So like he doesn't know, you know, what the fuck is going on there. Eventually you do make it to the hotel and a bunch of shit's revealed. Also Laura is there, the kid. And she said like, you know, I knew Mary. She gave me these letters to give to you eventually. And through a series of like cutscenes and this like VHS that you watch that James had made, it's revealed that like James and Mary were together for a long time. Mary had some sort of chronic and what would end up being like a deadly illness. The doctors had said like, you know, she has only a few years to live tops, and that they had also been fighting quite a bit. Like, you know, the illness that she was afflicted with from, you know, Mary's own perspective had like made her frustrated and like was easily angered. And so was James as a consequence. Like he was quick to anger as well. And like through in one of the VHSs, it's revealed that he had ended up killing Mary. And in a way where it's like sort of unclear, like, was this something that like they had maybe talked about or not really? Like it seemed like no.
Yeah.
That like he was essentially trying to like euthanize her to prevent pain, but like also he definitely did kill her, you know? And so it's this bizarre and interesting reveal where like you as the player have kind of been assuming like, yeah, I'm just looking for his wife. I don't know what happened, but like I'm not the bad guy. Whereas like it's told of like, yeah, no, you fucked up real bad. The character that you're inhabiting
hasn't done good things in his past.
No.
Yeah.
And like it's interesting in the sense of like games like BioShock where like you are doing bad as the character, or Spec Ops: The Line where you're doing bad stuff as the character, and then the game turns around and is like, don't you feel bad about what you did? Whereas the bad thing has mostly already happened by the time you're playing as James. And so like it's very bizarre to inhabit that character. And so the way the rest of the game plays out is that you as James have to go and confront Pyramid Head again, who again, Maria's alive somehow. Again, they've got her like caught someplace. And essentially come to terms with the fact that like, yes, this is the thing that I did. And like, I'm trying to like work through the guilt of that, which is interesting. And not to mention once he does acknowledge that and, you know, does do that, the Pyramid Heads, you have to like fight in a boss battle, but they like essentially kill themselves because they're like, okay, we're good now. Which is this reveal of like a lot of the manifestations that James has been seeing are just ways that his own mind has been trying to grapple with the death of his wife and the murder of his wife by his own hands. In the sense of like all of these monsters that are hunting him are, you know, manifestations of his own weird sort of perverse sexual frustrations. Maria herself is a manifestation of like his quote unquote idealized wife, right? Like she's more assertive. She's a lot more like, you know, sexual in the way that he wanted her to be, which again, I think all of this is like pretty gross and brutal, like
Yeah.
from a person to person perspective, but like that's what the game is presenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Pyramid Head himself is a way for James to like punish himself, right? Like to sort of self-flagellate and be like, you know, aren't I so fucked up? Aren't I such a bad guy? And like as a way to try and like grapple with like, let me actually look at this and deal with it. And in the same way that, you know, Pyramid Head is like showing Maria's death over and over and over again, it's just him, you know, putting himself through this over and over and over again in ways that like long-term trauma does, where you just sort of like relive these events. And so after that happens, it's like you kind of get a couple of different ending options. One in which you go and fight Maria, who like sort of turns into this like terrifying monster. One in which you go and like sort of talk with what seems to be actually Mary. And you sort of try and let yourself off the hook, which doesn't really work out in the best way.
Yeah.
You like take Maria back with you to like leave essentially with her. But she in the ending cutscene is like, she starts getting a cough and he's like, oh, you better deal with that. And suggesting like the same shit's gonna happen again.
Sure.
There's another ending where you leave with Laura, which I think is like kind of the better of the endings. Like you deal with your own sort of self-doubt and guilt and try and like leave with Laura, because Laura had a relationship with Mary before she died. They had like had some kind of connection in Silent Hill. And so Laura's like, you know, Mary had talked about, you know, maybe I'll adopt you once we're done here. And so that kind of feels like the good ending.
Yeah. I was always confused by that, because does that mean that Mary didn't die when he killed her then? And that she just like went to Silent Hill and met up with Laura there? And then why is Laura in Silent Hill if Silent Hill calls to people who have done bad things in their life?
I think the interpretation was that Laura is like more motivated by like just her hope to find Mary. And that's not necessarily like, you don't have to be motivated by bad to go to Silent Hill, but like it does call to people, which is also explains why she doesn't see any of the like monsters that James does, right? Like she isn't afflicted with that. Yeah. You also get a little glimpse of that when you encounter Angela in the end, who's like really struggling, like suicidal ideation, and mistakes James for her mother. And she's like, oh no, like you're not her. And you're in this like flaming hallway. Yeah. And James is like, it's like really hot in here. It really sucks in here. And she's like, oh, you see it. Like I see this all the time. And so there's this ability for like the characters to kind of see each other's interpretations of Silent Hill for like brief moments. Anyway, point being, like Laura does not seem to struggle with that at all. I think to your point about like, how is Laura here? I think the main sort of thing that clarified it for me was that the timeline that James has been working with, I think is way fucked up. Sure. Like there's a suggestion, I think, from people who are like talking about it online that he like just killed Mary. Like it was a day ago or something.
Unreliable narrator.
Exactly, yeah. Because Laura says like, oh, I'm just about to turn 8. And in one of the letters that you find from Mary, she says like, oh, like happy 8th birthday, right? Sure. So like the idea being she has not been dead for 3 years. She's been dead for like a couple of days, maybe. And so Laura has come back very directly after getting these letters from Mary of like, I would hope to adopt you soon. Like, I really hope you're doing okay. And Mary even says like, you know, don't worry about my husband. He's not, you know, he's not the bad guy that you think he is or whatever, which is proved wrong. Yeah. Anyway, so there's like a lot of shit in there, and like, you know, we could sort of chew on every one of these details, but I think it's like a really interesting way to tell a story in a game, and one that's like, I think so focused on the characters and like their own sort of delusions, their own appreciation of the tough reality that they're in. Talks a lot of like real heavy shit. I think Angela's story specifically is like by far the most heavy in the game. Like, her it's just rough stuff. So like, you know, if you're interested in that, check it out. But like, it's really wild and like pretty rough, but stuff that like video games weren't talking about at the time in any sort of serious capacity. So
yeah, most things don't talk about it.
No, yeah, that's true.
Pretty taboo subjects.
I was reading that the people who made this game were really influenced by Crime and Punishment, the book by Fyodor Dostoevsky, in which the character in that one like considers killing someone to make himself like a lot of money as a result, and ends up trying to justify it of like, well, you know, if a man can be made great through like just a little bit of money, like morals and laws can be bent, you know? And of course, like ends up struggling with the fallout of that decision quite a bit, which, you know, sounds similar in a certain sense, like
Sure does.
and a single man's delusions of what is going to like fix his life is a lot different when it's actually pushed up against reality.
Yeah.
Not to mention this like visual and story influence from like David Cronenberg, David Fincher, David Lynch, and like Hitchcock movies too. A lot of Davids.
Lots of Davids. Yeah.
And also they had mentioned this movie called Jacob's Ladder, which look at some stills from this movie. It's like really similar stuff.
I've heard of this movie.
It really reminds me of this game in its interpretation of hell, and like this in-between world is like very industrial, similar to Silent Hill. And the story of Jacob's Ladder is this guy who's struggling with, I think, Vietnam PTSD, and a lot of his like hallucinations are being made real, which is a very, very Silent Hill too.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I think you can really see the influences in how this game was made, and it's pretty neat to see a lot of this stuff actually built out in a way that ends up feeling really significant. Yeah, I mean, like, I think this game is astounding. Like, I was so impressed by this whole thing.
This game hits on all the best things about what makes horror a great film genre, and that I feel like horror movies are able to really delve into and process like traumatic and horrible events and like the dark side of humanity, and make it into something that's interesting and usually cathartic in the end. And I feel like I said, I feel like this game hits those same notes as opposed to just, ooh, big scary zombies, you know, like a lot of scary video games kind of tend towards, which, you know, is fun in its own way. But this is at the end of the day, this is a much more rewarding and memorable experience than, you know, like a, I don't know, not to put anyone on blast, but like an Outlast or something like that, right? Sure. Which is still a fun and interesting game, but different, very different.
Yeah, very. Yeah, totally. And like, I think it even one-ups Silent Hill 1, which was like much more focused on like why the town is the way that it is.
Yeah.
And like what the like occult things happening there were. And like that is, I will say, also scary, but like I think they made such a good decision to focus more on the people in it and like how their own sort of like mental struggles are made manifest. And like, it's for whatever reason, so much scarier to focus on that for me, like the darkness that somebody can harbor rather than like the devil's coming back, you know?
I mean, that's so much more real though.
Yeah, no,
like,
true.
Like what James does in this game is something that someone in reality, I mean, could do, maybe has done in the past. Yeah. Whereas, you know, there's always that little bit in the back of your head is like a Satan, demons. Those aren't real. Never seen them. They ain't hurting me. Right.
It's much more hypothetically scary, the demon stuff.
Exactly. This is the darkness that exists in people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's great. It's spooky. It sticks with you.
No, this one definitely will leave a lasting impact. I remember trying to play this as a kid and like just couldn't fucking do it, dude. Like way too scary, way too real. Like I remember seeing Pyramid Head and was like, I don't think I can actually.
Yeah. I think I was reading Game Pro and just saw like a picture of Pyramid Head. I'm like, never.
Yeah, that's
never
way too
once.
much.
I could not do scary stuff as a kid. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it had the ability to scare me a lot more than it does now. But yeah, I agree. I think like this game is showing what you can do the best with horror of. Did that sentence make any sense? This game is showing good horror stuff. Wow. Can't do it.
This game demonstrates the best of what a horror genre game can do for you and me.
Thank you. Thank you, David. You brought it home.
I tried.
Yeah, it's a good fucking video game. I was thoroughly impressed. I didn't like I knew that people liked this game, but I didn't really know why. And so good God, was it cool to play through it.
It's the story, it's the vibe, it's the everything about it. It's not about the gameplay. It's about the experience. It's about the finding of things and the exploration, and there's the fucked up things you interact and deal with and experience.
Yeah. And like I think that it does such a good job of telling like a David Lynch sort of story where things are so confusing for a long time and like solidify for the most part. I'm sure you could find some details where like it's confusing, but I think the overall thrust of the story is like, I get it. I understand what they're doing. And like, I think so much of that genre sometimes can just be so obsessed with getting confusing and not knowing what the fuck is going on. But I appreciate that they like kind of put a point on it of like, you're experiencing someone's mental state and the inconsistencies in it are intentional. There are going to be things that don't make any sense. And that's because you're in somebody's head and how they see the world.
Yep.
And so there's going to be some stuff in there that doesn't make sense. I think that's just so smart. It's a really cool idea.
You never know what's going on in someone else's head.
No, and like I feel like you rarely get to engage so much with a narrator in games like this. Like so often things are just presented for what they are rather than like, how is this person that I'm playing as hiding shit from me?
Yeah, there's often no gray in a video game.
No.
Like I just played Halo 2. Kill the Covenant, except
Kill the
for
bad
the
guys.
elites. Kill the bad guys. Prophet of Truth, that's a bad guy. Got to kill him.
It's true. And like even the games where the main character doesn't know what's going on, it's oftentimes attributed to like amnesia or something. I feel like it's really rare where the player doesn't know what's going on and the character kind of does.
Yeah.
Like that's a really specific thing that doesn't happen very often because frankly, it's hard to fucking do. There's really specific situations where that's the case. So
yeah, you really have to craft it well to pull that off. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
No,
it's one of the it's something that's you can kind of do it in movies too, but
yeah.
Like it's always just a treat when someone pulls it off in any sort of medium,
especially when agency, like player agency, is involved. Because like, why would I be doing these things if I knew X, Y, or Z? Whereas this one is the player doesn't know very much, and the character does, but really is trying not to look at it. And I think that's really, really interesting.
He knows things, but he's trying not to know things. Actively.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's very good. So yeah, Silent Hill 2, good fucking video game, good game. Spooky game.
Yeah, good way to kick off the spooks
for real. Hey, listener. Hello. If you would like to get in contact with us or send us an email about like what game we should play or any such nonsense, you can go to podtimism.com. Check it out there. That's where all of our stuff is. Our social links are links to our podcast player or our email. You can do any of it there. So, I got to change my name on the website.
Oh,
it's Albie still.
No, I don't know who that is.
Some other dudes, the previous host.
Some chode.
So yeah, you can do all that there. If you want to help the show, there's a couple ways you can do that. One, you can review it in whatever podcast thing that you listen to podcasts through. Like an Appy podcast or a Spotify or something like that.
Appy podcast.
So you can do that. The other thing is to tell a friend, or if somebody's like, hey, you got any podcast suggestions? Be like, I got a good one. Or potentially, if you're giving a wedding speech, make mention of your podcast that you make. Surprising even your family that you have one.
Get wrecked, family.
Sorry, y'all. Just the tell a friend method is quite helpful. Hey, Scout Wilkinson, thanks for your work on our podcast art. It's really
beautiful.
Good. It's really good. Scout, I guess it's been a little while since she's finished this, but she did Swordtober. Just great results for Swordtober. Swordtember. Sworduary. Swarch. Just Swarpril.
Swarpril. Swoon.
Swilai. Swagist.
Swordgist?
Swagist.
That's just August with SW at the front.
She drew swords for September. It was good. You should go check that out. I really enjoyed her work there. It's on Twitter. She's at Humble Goat. If you want to go give that a look. She also has a Ko-Fi. ko-fi.com/humblegoat is her place that you can go give her a look if you want to support her financially, or if you want to keep an eye on those commissions. I don't think they're open right now. Also, hey, thank you, listener, for listening to this podcast and giving us a few weeks off. We appreciate it. We're back and stronger than ever, recording 2-hour podcasts like it's nothing.
I know, it's their second 2 hours in a row.
Lengthy, boys.
Check yourself.
So thank you for listening. We both love making the show. I felt a Podtimism-sized hole in my heart when we weren't making it for a few weeks. So appreciate being able to make it and for people to receive it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, do you have any gaming wisdom for us this week to end on?
I do.
Okay.
I do, Chase.
Okay.
If you are having a hard time with life or your loved one or anything like that, maybe get therapy before you commit murder instead.
I think a lot of steps before murder are probably a great option.
A lot of the problems in this game, I think, could have hopefully been averted with some good old fashioned therapy.
Yeah, and like not everything's gonna be curable, but like, damn, I think some like therapy 3 months prior to going to Silent Hill would have been like a pretty sick option. I think
it would have gone hard in the paint, most definitely. That therapy would have put up 30 points and 10 rebounds,
buckets, man,
15 assists, shoot 80% from the floor. Just legendary performance.
Absolute buckets. Call me Slamson because I'm ready to slam this therapy.
Call me Slamson because I am the king of therapy. But yeah, if you have going through a tough time, just go get some therapy. It's good for you.
Yeah, it helps. There's also like affordable options sometimes. So like,
sure are.
Seek that out. It's a good thing. Or just like, talk to a friend. Sometimes that helps. It's not a stand-in for therapy, but like it can help.
Talk to a friend, go to a group, do something. Yeah, I mean, then you have to go to Silent Hill, and no one wants to be
Silent
there.
Hill sucks, man.
Silent
that place
Hill
stinks.
Sucks. That's your punishment.
Yeah.
Honestly, you should probably be more.
What do you think the mascot of therapy would be? Like if they had if they had a Slamson-esque mascot.
Slamson? Is it? Whoa, okay.
Like somebody who comes out on the court and gets people stoked for therapy.
Oh man, that's a great fucking question. Wow. Maybe it's just like some regular ass dude who's like done his laundry and like took a shower that day and like went to bed at a reasonable hour and got up and is just feeling good about his routine.
It's normal guy.
Hey, it's Normie.
I'm just out here doing the best I can. Gives a big thumbs up to the people in the crowd.
Why does he have a southern drawl?
I'm not sure. It felt natural to me.
My name's Normie, and I'm just doing what I can do, and that's the best I could do, and that's great.
Honestly, I love Normie. I love Normie.
He's just even keel. He's good. He's dealing with his shit.
He's dealing with his shit. He still has bad days. He struggles on the regular, but like he's out there doing the fucking work, man. Mm-hmm. Going hard in the motherfucking paint for this therapy.
I'm going hard in the mental paint right now, but I'm coming out on top.
I'ma dig this fucking trauma up, boy. I'ma deal with it. I'ma process this shit.
I'm gonna process the shit out of this. Ain't nobody process anything like Normie does. Normie's got a little bit of a mean streak in him when things aren't going right. He gets aggressive with those maladaptive thoughts and behaviors.
Oh God, yeah, I'm a big fan of Normie now.
Yeah, Normie rocks.
All right, see you next week, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.